Hi, everybody. I want to thank all of you for leaning into the discomfort. It's where all the growth happens. So if you're not used to having these conversations, this is a new thing, and just like any new sensation, we just have to get used to it, and kind of feel it and experience it for a minute. So don't feel like this is. This is weird and awkward, and it's growing into your new awareness. I want to thank everybody who shared their experiences. Um, it's created an opportunity to give visibility to some of the things that we may not be aware of. And I applaud your vulnerageousness. It's a term that Kristen shared with me, which I've embraced. Definitely being vulnerable in your courageousness in order to share out. I'm coming in with a little bit more hope and a desire to do something. Sometimes when we experience these things, it you want to use that energy towards something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite a couple of friends of mine to come and join me in this conversation. Our friends, Shervon, Lomax, and Charles. I'd love for you to introduce yourselves and share with us a little bit about the things that you're doing, and also maybe share some programs or solutions that you've seen, heard about, and experienced in the work that you're doing, as particularly that addresses systemic racism and helps support. So,
my name is Charles Farras. I'm the interim president and CEO of the International Business Innovation Association. We are a network of entrepreneurship centers, incubators, accelerators, co-working spaces, and our mission as an organization is to help communities transform the dreams of entrepreneurs and transform those dreams into innovative businesses that make prosperity and equality in communities a reality. And so I want to thank Kristen, Faye, and Cecilia for your leadership in us having this discussion, and for inviting the NBIA community to contribute and to participate in this. What I would share just in terms of just highlighting what I've seen is some programs, I would say probably not necessarily best practices, but promising practices. Given our mission as an organization, we have definitely been focused on the economic imperative of advancing diversity, inclusion, and entrepreneurship centers across our communities. And we're actually in the process of publishing a playbook where we've done a couple of years of research and touched several organizations to see what they're doing and what might be transferable. And we've categorized some of these best practices in 3 areas around engagement and education, programming, and sustainability. And our playbook we're gonna launch. We have about 25 or so case studies and resources and that we are highlighting. But one I'll share with the group here this afternoon is an initiative that's being ran out of Cleveland, and it's called the Business Growth Collaboration or Collaborative. And I think that this is an excellent solution or example of collective impact amongst entrepreneurial support organizations in a community to deal with the issue of access to resources within an ecosystem for entrepreneurs of color. And the problem, I think we've already kind of touched upon it today, is that oftentimes, you may interact with an entrepreneur, just an entrepreneur in general, and they oftentimes will struggle with finding the right resources within their community to help grow and build their business. And we may be aware of, just oodles and oodles of resources that are available. And specifically, I've seen this as an issue with entrepreneurs of color. And for maybe a variety of reasons, it could be from lack of awareness, It can be from the bureaucracy, I think that was touched upon in some of our earlier discussions, just the complexity of accessing these resources. Or it can be from issues of trust, where these entrepreneurs of color just do not identify as being kind of the target customer or target consumer for these resources. And some of this mistrust may exist because of history of inequality and systemic access issues. So this collaborative was started, catalyzed by Jumpstart, which is an NBIA member. It's 11 nonprofits, entrepreneurial support organization in Cleveland. They've agreed upon a common assessment process or assessment framework for working with entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of color. This is targeted on Black entrepreneurs. And this group meets periodically. I think it started off monthly, now is meeting quarterly. They have a CRM system where they are tracking the individual entrepreneurs that they are supporting. And the great thing about this collaborative is it's a space where service providers can bring the unmet needs of their entrepreneurs of color to the collaborative and find resources and can connect those entrepreneurs to those resources and refer them into their partners within the ecosystem. So I think that this is an excellent example of a program that deals with the issue of access, but not only access, but belonging, to make sure that these entrepreneurs are receiving the resources to be successful. So Cecilia, I'll stop there and listen for more.
Great. Thank you so much, Charles, for sharing that. Siobhan, wait, no, I'm going to go with Lomax because alphabetically by first name. Lomax, can you share a little bit about what you do and share a resource that you know of that works on accessing and combating this?
Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Lomax Campbell from the Mayor's Office of Community Wealth Building in the city of Rochester. I would say that back in August of this year, we launched a local implementation or regional implementation of a national brand called SourceLink, which some of you may be familiar with. And we're regionally branding it as nexusi90.org or nexusi90. And for about a year and a half prior to launching the program, we used funds raised through Living Cities to do a number of feasibility types of activities, which included having our entire project team attend an Undoing Racism workshop down in Austin, Texas, administered by the People's Institute for Survival and Beyond. And the whole purpose of the training was to gain a systemic view of how racism works and how it intersects with class, to create barriers where multiple systems and multiple organizations across sectors and systems literally collude to keep things the way they are. And so beginning to get that analysis, what they call the power analysis, in the midst of doing ecosystemic building work was a critical step in our process. We also used a portion of our funds from our Living Cities grant to review the municipal code to see if there were structural or systemic barriers baked into the city's code. And what we realized was that the code itself wasn't problematic, it was the enforcement of it. And there was a parallel initiative that we were running called Race, Equity, and Leadership through National League of Cities to look at the city's policies, practices, procedures, and organizational structure with a racial equity lens. And so to merge those two efforts, the efforts from Living Cities to bring a platform like SourceLink to fruition and the work with National League of Cities to advance racial equity and race, equity, and leadership, we said, what if all of the entrepreneur support organizations that would be listed in the resource navigator on SourceLink, what if we required all of them to go through Undoing Racism training within a year or two of being listed in the system so that we can better bring that perspective to the service of entrepreneurs in our community, and we can have common language in doing what we're doing as we're supporting entrepreneurs at every stage and phase of business development. And by stages and phases, I mean the startup phase, stay up phase, scale up phase, and split up phase, and the respective stages within them. So like startup would have seed, launch, and then eventually you'd have growth and so forth. And so that was huge for us. Our project team came back and was able to convince our funder to allow us to organize 3 additional Undoing Racism workshops in the city of Rochester. And we served about 85 different people, everywhere from the Monroe County court system, law enforcement officers. We had about 6 or 7 of our entrepreneur support organizations in our network send representatives through the training. We also had folks from the funding community go through the training. And subsequent to those trainings back in October of last year, we launched a kind of like an alumni group of the training and have been meeting monthly since December of last year. That's allowed us to kind of inculcate the anti-racist organizing principles and also use that to inform the principles that you'll see on Nexus I-90's guiding principles list. So literally baked into the cake of how we co-created our entrepreneurial ecosystem. And then a subsequent grant to JP Morgan Chase talked about taking SourceLink's CRM system and building out what we call the walled garden, which would allow every entrepreneur support organization in our region that wants to collaborate in one shared system to be able to freely share and collaborate working on different clients' accounts in a way that is streamlined. That literally represents a fundamental shift from a Eurocentric to more of a, I would say, an African or Latino or Asian-centric way of viewing the world, where no particular organization owns the small business owner, but instead we all share the account and we own our activities that we engage in with respect to that particular account. So for example, volunteer legal services in Rochester might provide free legal services to help form the business. The city of Rochester, where I work, may provide funding to that business. And one of our partners, like Urban League or Ibero, which serves largely the Latino community, might have businesses go through an incubator and accelerator program. All of us own our respective activities, but no one organization owns the client. That kind of thinking and collaboration has come out of folks going through the Undoing Racism training, and we hold folks accountable for their portion of the work. I'll pause there. We can definitely go deeper, but I think that's a big enough idea to chew on.
Great, thank you so much, Lomax. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Siobhan Cherry to the screen and have you tell us a little bit about what you do and what you've seen that's working.
Hey, all, I'm Siobhan Cherry here with Spark Co-working. We have community-focused co-working in Baltimore and in Kansas City, Missouri. And our whole organization is focused on, we provide space and place for entrepreneurs, individuals, creators to grow their teams, find connections. Everyone really knows what co-working is, but we're stepping away from that typical real estate model that people actually find with co-working and really diving into ecosystem development and economic development for the cities that we're in. One thing that I've really, especially in this past year, it's been tough for everyone. 2 organizations or initiatives that have really stood out. We have the Baltimore ESO here, which every city has their own sort of ESO group or collaborative. But since I'm sort of entrenched in it, we've been really focused on how can we just collectively use our resources as entrepreneur support orgs to support those companies that are here in Baltimore. So and I actually just got off of our December call with them. We've really focused on shifting some resources. I know there's a few accelerators and incubators in that program that have typically sort of done like a big one lump sum of the accelerator program. We've sort of shifted that out. So instead of having one pot of money go for one organization, we've sort of spread it out throughout a few other orgs, and also just continuing and sort of accelerating the collaboration between each of our organizations, even more so than we have in the past. Another org that I have been involved in, and a few other folks that are on this call here are involved or leaders of the eShip Communities Baltimore committee. So we actually launched this committee before COVID hit. We decided that we were going to hyper focus on Black entrepreneurship in particular. There's been a lot of sort of discussion around the term people of color versus Black versus brown. And we wanted to make sure for Baltimore, we were focused on Black businesses. We've lost 40% of our Black businesses in the past year alone due to COVID and restrictions there and having to close down. So we're making sure, and I'll make sure to put the website link in the chat, but we're making sure that we are hyper-focused and creating a cohort of sort of retail based businesses in Baltimore that have been affected even prior to COVID, but even more so with COVID happening and how they've been just decimated with the effects of that. Hyper focusing on immediate resources, funding needs, working with them on what are immediate steps that we can make. And just so you know, this committee is made up of multiple Baltimore-based organizations. It's not coming from a one lens focus. This is a team of 10 plus, 15 plus, 20 plus individuals that are coming together from all aspects and all corners of Baltimore City, East Side and West Side, to make sure that we are covering all our bases when it comes to this. So this is just the starting point, and we're looking to really expand on this and go beyond 2020 and all the drama that's come with it.
Great. Thank you so much, Siobhan, for sharing that resource with us. You know, we as ecosystem builders, we think about connections and we think about resources and we think about how we build and support all of our communities. And that's wonderful. I want to take a step back and talk about what we can do to eliminate the barriers. When we first embarked upon this work, we talked about zero barriers to entrepreneurship. Well, some of those things will require us to recognize what the boulders and the hurdles are in all the work that we do. The way that I look at Abide, I think about access as a path, belonging as a goal, inclusion as an action, diversity, which is a fact, and equity as a condition. And however you translate Abide to live in your framework, and then ideate solutions and recognize what the barriers are. So we'd love to hear some of the voices that shared information with us over the last over the time that we spent together. So Faye is going to invite some people as you continue to share out.
Yes. So I'd love to, I see Siobhan. I'd love to share, maybe Siobhan, I know you did share with us about some work that's going on in Baltimore, but what's some other, one reflection that you took away from today from maybe something you heard one of the other speakers share?
Well, I guess one thing during one of our breakouts that really stood out was kind of stepping down and not stepping up. So to put it in some context, thank you, Andy, for that. Basically having the folks who are repeatedly sort of center stage and sort of always sort of out there, maybe they're the default, they're maybe having them step back. So that allows, you know, someone who hasn't had that access or that speaking role to really, this is to get basically getting rid of the mantles, right, of the man or all white male panels and that sort of structure. So that really sort of resonated.
Excellent, thank you. I'll hop to Darlisa from our earlier panel. And Darlisa, can you share something that you learned from someone else today in one of our conversations that resonated with you?
I learned so much. I think what struck me the most was the ally versus accomplice. That ideology really stuck out, and we even furthered the conversation in our discussion point. But I also liked how LC put it, that we are fighting, you know, and that it is a continual fight, and it's not just on one endeavor, but on multiple endeavors. I really enjoyed all of the commentary, even from the Hispanic side of things, how, you know, us as Black people, yes, we do have our oppressions, but, you know, there's a whole nother conversation that could be had regarding the Hispanic culture and some of the differences that they deal with. So I learned a whole lot. I have a whole list of new terms that I've learned as well. So it has all been inspiring for me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And thank you all for leaning into your groups and being willing to be vulnerable, giving each other safe spaces to have these conversations. This is something that does not happen. And I can honestly say I've been in a ton of events over the past few months. And this is not something that happens often or that we allow ourselves to do. So thank you so much, all of you. For showing up in this way. And we'd like to start to bring things to a close for our conversation for today, and leaning back into our theme of today of race to recovery. So when you think of anti-racism and what you've heard shared today and what we have leaned into together, one of the questions that I'd like you to think about is, what kind of race are we running here related to this work? You often hear people talking about running a sprint versus a marathon. So, is this work, I think there's a fear by, I think, many people who have been systemically excluded and that walk this walk every day, that this is now everyone's showing up and saying they're interested, they care, and they just want to do something and get it done. And let's just do it as fast as possible. And that's that sprint mentality. And I think we have to step back from that. We have to sort of be careful not to just jump to action for the sake of wanting to look like we are doing something, or even the deep need to do something, right? We have to think about this then. So then the question is, if it's not going to be a sprint, is it a marathon? Do we think about it as this sort of long journey where we're only going to take incremental steps, we're going to pace it slow, we'll get there someday, we're no big rush. I think that's also a risk, because if we think about it as a marathon, then we might not be intentional enough to do the things in the moment and in the present that can actually push us forward in this conversation and in this work. So my dad was actually a track coach. And this is part of why this race thing came to me, is that I grew up around track and running and races. And I actually see this a little bit different, because I watched all the different types of events, that I saw my dad coaching. And when I think about this, I think about anti-racism as more like running the hurdles. And if you ever watch people who are getting ready to run a hurdle race, it's a very beautiful and unique thing to watch. It looks easy, but it is not easy. And I saw this, and no one knows how to innately run hurdles, right? You have to be taught. You actually have to be intentional about learning how to pace your steps. You have to learn how to start right. You have to learn how to get ready, right? So at the starting line, you see people in that position. This is where a lot of us are starting from. A lot of allies are starting from this. I just want to get ready, get the information, right? And then getting set means you are raising up. You are taking what you have learned, and you are being aware of the presence. And you'll see often people who are getting set to go, they are centering, right? They are focused on the finish line, and they are aware of what's around with them, going around them, but they are looking straight forward. And then what? The gun blows, right? And it's go, and you're off. But as opposed to a sprint, what you have to realize is literally just a few yards away, you're gonna hit a barrier. You're gonna have to jump. So in this process, when you're doing this work of trying to show up and be anti-racist, you're going to need to do this. You're gonna need to get ready, set, and go. And then you're going to have to measure your steps, count what you're doing, be deliberate, and then jump over every hurdle you see. And then when you're done with that hurdle, guess what? Another one's coming. So you hit your stride again, and you jump that next hurdle, and you just keep jumping. And that is this race that we are in. That is the race of anti-racism. And I look forward with all of you to continuing to dig in this work as we continue to get ready, set, go, and jump these hurdles together. I want to thank you all for being here for our Race to Recovery event. We've reached today's finish line, but we know that the race continues. And what I would ask of all of us is to know that none of us are alone in this. No matter whether you are a person of color, whether you are Black, whether you are Hispanic, whether you are a woman or a man, or however you identify, whatever your intersectionality is, and whatever your multiple identities are, we are in this together, and we need to run together side by side. And I thank you all for being here. And as we wrap, I would like to share a little bit more about the organizations and the three of us who have come together to do this. We'd love to, if you're interested in learning more about Forward Cities and our equitable ecosystem development work, or how you might get IDEATE anti-racism training in your community, feel free to reach out to us. Startup Champions Network is a phenomenal organization that Kristen is the executive director of, and that we are all members of. A fantastic ecosystem builder community. They do fantastic summits and educational opportunities. And I will tell you, this is where I have found, my people, my family of folks who get this work, and we can have these conversations, in an intersectional way, which is really valuable. And then lastly, Cecilia, whose company is under the brand of Mass Collaboration. She works, in consulting related to ecosystem building, inclusive collaboration and facilitation. And so feel free, if you want to get in contact with any of us, reach out by email or visit our websites. And lastly, we'd like to thank our platinum sponsor, Marion Kaufman Foundation, for really stepping up and prioritizing this set of work and this conversation. So we all say thank you. Have a fantastic day, and we look forward to more conversations ahead.
Thank
Bye-bye,
you,
guys.
everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Faye.
Thank you, Faye.
Thank you, Faye.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Andy.
Stay on and thank each
Thank
other.
you, Cecilia.
Thank you, John Boy.
A thank-a-thon is
Don't forget
totally
to send the
welcome.
recording.
Yes,
Send everybody the recording later.
We will
Yeah,
definitely do
we'll
that.
follow up.
Should I
Thank
stop the
you all.
recording?